No.
Do you want me to do it for you?
No.
Is it too heavy?
I've done it. Hello, Nana Sue. How are you? That's okay.
Lovely. Right. We've changed the lighting slightly. I'm not sure how it's going to work. But
Does it look okay?
I don't know.
Proper Laurel Nardi, do you? Or you? Do you know which one's which?
No, I don't know.
You tell me who you want to be then. Go on. Laurel or Harder.
Is there a bad one?
No, they're both lovely. But one is ultra thin and one's not so thin. Who do you want to be?
I think...
No, don't think.
I think there's an accurate representation.
Yes. So just choose who you want to be.
Laurel.
You can be him then, yeah. I'll be Oliver Hardy. You can be Stan Laurel.
Okay.
So you are...
Which one am I?
I think you're the thin one.
That's the right way round then.
I think you are, yeah. Z, can you find out and tell me the truth or so? Could I have a drink, please?
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Lovely jubbly. I think we're on. I think everyone's here. I think we're good.
Yes. So
are you happy?
Yeah.
It's been a long week, hasn't it?
It has, but I think it's okay.
We've been productive, I think,
We've done
which
lots.
is really good. So this is, again, an episode of Wild Conversations. I'm Jess.
And I'm Steve.
And today we're talking about kind of a bit more on the cats, to be honest, because we obviously last episode we covered a lot of Uganda and Pasha and how they got here and what they're doing and the situation surrounding it. But we were in the beginning supposed to be a parrot sanctuary, and obviously we have quite a lot of cats. Why do we have quite a lot of cats? Who got you into cats? What happened?
Well, we are still the parrot sanctuary. We're the national parrot sanctuary.
We are.
We're also... I'll tell you what happened. We had a cracking relationship, and we still have up to a point, with the council.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chap called Rod McKenzie, and he was he was like the environmental health officer and zoo inspector, and he was relatively new in his job.
Okay.
And we're talking 20 odd years ago, and he learnt a lot.
It's my whole lifetime ago.
Okay. How old was you when we opened? 2003. You were 7.
7.
Oh my Lord. Anyway, so we actually created a really good relationship, and when I say that, it means he was learning about zoos and things, and we were learning about zoos and things. So between us,
you were learning about zoos and things.
And although we're not a zoo, we have to have a full zoo license.
Okay.
Exactly the same as all the big zoos. So within this relationship, he used to come down and actually, if he'd got not a client, but a part of his job was he had to go and inspect. There's another side to this. So we've got a zoo license.
Yep.
Then there's another license below us called the DWA.
Yes.
Which is a dangerous wild animals license.
And there has been actually a couple of TV programs about this as well.
Yes, where they can have anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's alarmingly easy to obtain and have what we call a Category 1 animal in the country if you want it privately.
Well, the thing that people... when we talk about these things, and we obviously see it across the board, but when you talk about these things, the thing that you look at is on Cat 1 animals. Everybody always looks at, like, you can have a lion on your back garden. But more than that, I mean, and just as important, you can also have one of the most venomous snakes in the world that would kill you in less than a minute.
Yeah.
At least a lion would take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And
it's easy to see.
And you can hear it.
So, like, if the police come down, they know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
If your venomous snake gets out of the tank and bites you and you die, who's going to find that?
And that's happened a few times.
Yeah.
So the DWA, and I think there used to be about £70. So for that £70, you got a local vet, or was usually a cat and dog vet, your local environmental health officer, who'd just been to see a kitchen. And this is what we're happening. So in other words, Rod would come to me and say, I've just been and sorted the kitchens out in Skeg, and now we'll come into here. And it's like, that's not quite how it should work, is it? But Rod was brilliant because he specialised in what we was doing. But so you've got these levels of people who would keep certain animals. I mean, I don't know if this is a podcast at the moment for us to talk about that. I totally disagree with it. The only bit I disagree with, anybody can have anything, no problem at all. But they all have to have a set of instructions and guidelines that works to the maximum.
Oh,
So
this is no. This is not what we were going to talk about today.
Well, no,
however, it is just as important,
It's
and I think
yes.
there's actually been a couple of articles that I've read recently online about certain places in the UK who are obtaining new animals and building new enclosures for them, and a lot of the comments on the articles have been that the institutions that they're going to, I won't name any names, already have enclosures for most their animals which are too small.
Yes.
And they don't agree with them getting new animals because the enclosures they already have are not up to what I would say is public standard. But public standard and the licensing are actually very, very different.
Oh God, yeah, massively. I mean, you will be amazed, and I mean genuinely amazed. If what we will do is on one of our little podcasts when we're using the screen behind, we'll use some comparisons to show people.
Yeah, that's what we were going to do, wasn't we?
Yeah.
What we're going to do, so in a future episode, is we'll use the screen behind us and we'll get up some pictures of our enclosures and compare them to what the regulations say that they minimum should be. Yeah. Bearing in mind that a lot of places adhere to the minimum because it's the cheapest way they can do this. And that includes places, not just zoological institutions, but it includes things like, what are they called? Where chickens lay eggs.
Yes. Chicken farms.
Chicken farms. It includes places like that. So they have a minimum set of standards, and unfortunately the minimum tend to not be what I consider wonderful.
But you're entitled to that opinion.
But yes, it is completely my opinion.
You're not saying, and we're both on the same score. I mean, going on chickens, there's a local chicken farmer just retired. Well, just retired. He's only young, but he's just retired. And he was a massive animal person. Yeah. And we get our eggs from him. Yeah. And he invited me around. He said, "Do you want to come and have a look at where the chickens are? You've never seen luxury like it."
160 eggs a week, I'll have you know as well.
No, it's 100 and it's 1,200 eggs a week. We get.
Oh, is it 160 eggs a day?
Yes, that's a day we get through. Yes. And she's
160. I know, head of the kitchen. I knew it was 160 eggs a day we go through.
That's right. But he actually, and he invited me over to go and have a look. And his chickens have proper luxury. So they have the huge big chicken barn, which is where they have multi-leveled. Yeah. But then they all have steps going down to doors outside. Oh. And he had about 3 acres outside with probably 150, 200 trees. And I would say about 60 or 70 more chicken coops outside. So all the chickens could hang about. So, he worked for. He used to supply the eggs for Happy Eggs. Yeah, I buy Happy Eggs. Yes, I'm actually very specific about my eggs, and for the most part about my meat as well, because we did a whole module about this in uni about what the minimum standards are, what people set, and what you should look for in governing bodies to what they check for. So, for example, for eggs, I won't buy anything that has not been RSPCA assured. Yes. So if it's got the red lion on, it means that it's the minimum standards of the UK. But if it's RSPCA assured, they have a different set of guidelines that they go by. So the standard for RSPCA eggs tends to be higher. Yeah. So I'll only buy RSPCA eggs, or eggs where I know where they've come from, like we do. But it's the same with meat as well. You get RSPCA assured meat, but again, tends to be more expensive because obviously they go through a different check. So so in every level. So the trouble with the DWA, and this is no disrespect to the people that have them, because it's not their fault. No. This is guidelines that councils make. Yeah. And so basically, if you wanted a lion, and what most people do, they don't ask until afterwards. Yeah. So they'll get one, they'll build a cage, and unfortunately, if they have a cage, most of them just have a shed or something like that. And then they'll put a lion or a tiger in it.
It's a bit like asking for forgiveness instead of permission, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And then they'll say, "I've got this lion, what do I do?" And I've not known a council yet say, "Get shut." No. I've never known one. No. So it's a really strange one. So what... I think it's a cracking conversation to have, because it's one of those that people don't realise the accessibility or the availability of all these animals, from a venomous snake that you can just go out and buy to a tiger or a black panther. Nobody seemed to buy elephants. I think they'd get caught pretty quick. I
don't think elephants could go unnoticed.
If a wagon turned up outside the block of flats and they were like,
"Hang on,
jumbo travel." So I think, but these, there's obviously, this is a sad bit. You've got 3 different types of owners, really. You've got the ones that are use them for exhibit or sanctuary like us.
Yep.
And then you've got the ones that use them for work. So
Yep.
you've got the work. And I'm not against this. In fact, I know some people who keep them for work far better than some zoos keep them.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And then you get the ones that have them...
On
And
their
when I
back
say
gardens.
for work, when I say for work, that covers things like breeders and conservationists and things like that. Or,
Adverts.
advert for TV people
Yep.
and things like that. But then when you go to the other side, and that is where they want them for like an asset or a fashion accessory,
Yeah.
and they want
As a
to
show
just-
of money,
yes,
essentially.
and they want to just say, I've got a tiger, or I've got a lion, or I've got a spitting cobra.
Yeah.
That side I'm not keen on.
Yeah.
That's the side that you'll end up contacting us and saying that is
We can't take care of it
that
anymore.
little cub that I bought is
Isn't
not a little
small
cub now,
anymore.
it's 30 stone and can you do something with it? So that's where we go. So
Yeah.
let's go back to where Rod Mackenzie was. So Rod Mackenzie, he actually he was dealing with all this, and so while he was dealing with all this, he'd come to see me and say, Steve, I've just been to a house and I heard that they got some cats. I thought they'd have something like Savannah cats or servals or something like that.
Love Savannah cats.
Do you like Savannah
I
cats?
do. I like
I actually
servals
think
as
there's
well.
something quite unique about Savannah cats. There's different types. Obviously, there's what they call the F1, where they've hybridised them a little
Yeah.
bit. There is something quite special about them.
They are really
They're
special.
quite nice
They
cats.
are.
I don't
Terrifying.
Know where they are. I don't know where
Absolutely
they fit.
terrifying,
You don't
no.
like, because they like house cats.
But
They should
they're
be outside.
Yeah,
House
100%.
big cats. So I don't know
House
where they
big
fit.
cats.
I mean, I've it's because I'm into animals and things. So when I'm looking at my algorithms on my social media, it goes down like crying dogs and dogs making jokes and things like that. And there's one that's on there that's got a Savannah cat, and it is big.
They're huge.
But it's the most But this is where it's a bit strange. It's the most loving creature going. But it's like Pasha. It's
Yeah.
unbelievably vocal.
Yeah.
And when he goes near to it, this chap, it growls and hisses, and you look and think that could cause a bit of damage, and then it just kills up and lets him stroke
Yeah.
it. So Savannah cat. So that's what. So he expected this.
Yeah.
Anyway, he called me and he said, Steve, I've just had a bit of a shock. It's not Savannah cats, it's pumas. And I said, pumas?
Oh my gosh.
And he said, yeah. He said, there's 5 pumas.
When was this?
About 2006.
So way before we got any cats.
Oh, a long
at all.
time before
Yeah.
I thought. So I was, because I mean, between you and me. So when I'm trying to get the dates right. So 2014, 2011, about 2008, 2009, he did say to me, if ever we needed help, would you be able to help us? And at that point I said, well, not really, no. I might be a specialist in parrots, but when you're talking pumas, what I know you can write on the back of a stamp 3 times. And he says, all right. So he says, I said, but if it's something, and I never thought for 1 second, if it's something that may come across, I'll have a look at it. And so I started looking, and I went into it, and I thought, well,
Take it case by case.
nobody's ever going to phone me and say, Steve, I've got a tiger.
No.
So I'll take a little bit on and think, well, I've also read about winning lottery.
Yeah.
You know, and what you do when you win 10 million. I know there's more chance of the other ones phoning than the lottery man. So we went through this, and he would tell me about everywhere he went. And he went to another place very local, not well, I'm saying local, within about 15, 20 miles, and he'd got reindeers. Yeah, I know, he'd got reindeers. And lots of them.
Yeah.
And when he'd got problems with them, he would say to me, like, is there any chance if a reindeer needed a home, would you do it? And it was like, reindeers are slightly different, aren't they? Well, and I thought, again, totally naive, I thought, they've got to be a lot easier than a tiger to look after.
I mean...
No, they're not. Don't even go there. They're not. Because the tiger's behind cages. I'm never in with a tiger. I'm in with a blooming reindeer, and if you don't like me, it attacks me. So
Reindeers actually are also, here's a fun fact for you, reindeers are also category 1 animals. I think they still are, I don't think they took them off. Category 1 animals when they have their antlers on their head. So when a reindeer has his full antlers on, he is the same category as a tiger, which is cuckoo bananas, but also very warranted, because we have seen one year when Lexi decided that he was the alpha male. He was absolutely unmanageable.
Well, I went to this chap's just slightly off with all these reindeers, because I was fascinated. This chap was like an absolutely mine of information, one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met on animals, and And I went to see, and I was quite astounded at the fact that I looked and thought, God almighty, there's like 50 reindeers.
Holy moly.
And he kept talking, and all the time, and these reindeers were all like congregating around him, and he's talking and he's stroking them and everything. I thought, that's quite good, that. And then there's one or two bulls in there, but only small bulls. And they were just getting their antlers through and everything. And he says, but obviously what you've got to remember, and he was very practical.
Yeah.
There was no he didn't realise how educational he was, but there was no educational method.
Yeah.
He told the truth. And then he'd say, like, but remember with reindeers, you've only got one day. And then, what do you mean one day? He said, well, basically, one bad day on a reindeer and you're dead. And I said, what do you mean? So he said, right. He said, basically,
I'll think of that next time I go in with Lexi. Thank you very much.
Now, I don't know what he called this. He had this unbelievable one. I don't know what he called it, but he said, right, so when you meet whatever his name is, you'll see what I mean.
Bob.
He says, Bob. So when you meet Bob, you'll know what I mean. So I said, right. And I was still a little bit confused. So I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I've had him for probably 15 years. And for 364 days, he is like a pet. The 365th, he is like the devil. However, we don't know which day that's going to be. We know it's
like Russian roulette.
Yeah, we know it's sometime within rutting season.
Yeah.
But we just don't know when it's going to be. He says, and the issue we've got, he says, reindeers are classed as like, they've got some attributes that are classed as a little bit thick.
Yeah.
So you think they're thick, but
Yeah.
they're not.
They're not.
So he says, so what Bob will do is he'll put his head down and be munching away on the grass until he knows the distance from the fence to him is smaller than it is for me to get back. And then he'd stand up and look at me and give me that look of, I don't know,
I'm going to get you today.
how fast you can run this year, mate, but I'm coming. Now, I started laughing and I thought, this is got to be funny, until I walked around the corner and saw Bob. So Bob was like Lexi, but probably another 50% the size of him. He was pure white, and he had 2 oak trees as antlers. I'm not kidding. The antlers were taller than me.
Oh my God.
They were 2 meters each. And
Holy
well, he
moly.
actually he built they'd all got sheds and stables to go in, but he built the stable in a funny shape at the top so he could get his thing in. But he still had to turn his head to go in sideways. And I said, like, come and meet Bob. So I goes walking out, and I saw and this is gospel, this, because I was so overwhelmed with everything. It was lovely to see these trees moving about and everything all the back. And I thought what I saw were trees coming from the side, from the back of the stables. It weren't it with his antlers, with his head coming around to. And it kept going, I thought, that's not a tree.
That tree's moving.
And then all of a sudden this big, massive white head appeared. And instantly I thought, I wasn't even being with Bob for 364 days. And he shouted him, and he came over, and he says, right, he says, so he's already been through his rutting, he's already been through his breeding, which is why I've got little ones about. So he's actually fine now. And to stand at the side of this, probably about 15, 17 years old, huge, massive bull, I was totally daunted, thinking, oh my Lord, he could cause some proper damage. Whereas people don't realise with reindeers.
No.
So, and this chap will come back into the story somewhere, because with Rod kept...
So yeah, just going backwards, are you going back to the pumas?
Yeah, we'll go back to the pumas now.
Okay, that's fine.
So Rod actually turned around and said, Steve, these pumas, I don't know what we're going to do with them. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm going to have to put a bit of an enforcement order on the people and ask them if they'll change. I said,
what
right.
they're doing, yeah.
Because they've obviously got them with... Because what they have to do is, and they all play the same card, if they turn around and say, well, you can't have them like that, I'll say, okay, we'll have to put them to sleep. But you'll have to tell me to put them to sleep.
Yeah.
So they put it onto the council's onus, and the councils don't ever want to do that. So so throughout this like meeting with him, and I said, well, there's no way I could help, although I would love to help, just to give them a better life. A, I don't really know enough about them, and B,
we were still small.
We haven't got no facilities for that kind of thing. So what it did do is, in my head, it made me realise that, okay, this could be a possibility.
Yeah.
There could be a chance that I do have to look after a puma, or do have to look after a reindeer. So part of when I bought the field next door, or the land next door, part of the design was, if we needed to, so I spoke to this chap who told me about putting the trees down and where to put them, and he always said the same thing, which is a brilliant idea. Plant 3 times more than you need, because 10% will die anyway. And if you need to put an enclosure in, when you take them out, you're not actually killing the main tree stock. You're just taking the surplus out. He says, because all trees are the same, they all fight for the light, and the more trees they are, the straighter they become. And then the slower ones will naturally die off. He says, oh, it'll turn into little shrubs. So when I designed the very first section of that field, I had this, you've got to understand that when you're doing something like this, you always have to have a dreamy side. You have to have a side that's unachievable. So there was no way on earth, ever, in any business plan, in any future forecast of this place, was there ever a tiger. Never. Because it's like, who's going to give me a tiger? Where am I going to get a tiger from? There was never a tiger. So I never even thought about what was going to happen with these. So, but
it wasn't your main thing, was it? You were a parrot sanctuary, so it wasn't like you were specialised.
Yes.
So,
but on the next side, because we'd obviously gone into some of these small mammals with meerkats and what have you. So when I was on my own, I would design my own little tiger place and lion place and puma place, and thought, right, they'll walk along there and we'll do this. And I do remember with the university, I was talking to the professor there. We were talking, and I did say to him, I think this area here is what I'll put to one side for big cats. And he said, where's big cats coming from? So I said, I don't know.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I said, but if we work it out, and he says, yeah, all right, no problem. And it was lovely to see his face when he came back and there were big cats there. So what happened was, there was like a bit of a relationship, only a very, very vague relationship between this chap, me, and Rod Mackenzie. Rod Mackenzie saw me a lot. Rod Mackenzie saw this chap a lot. And so he was like the keystone between us. And then in about 2010, 2011, he contacted me and he came for a drink tea and we sat talking. And he said, would you ever consider, and I'd got the pumas in my head again from a couple of years before, and I thought, I know what he's going to say. And I can now turn around and say, I might actually consider that.
I've got some plans.
So he went, would you ever consider a tiger? And I thought, I weren't ready for that. What do you mean a tiger? So he says, yeah, so we've got a slight issue on the council. He says, we have got quite a number of tigers privately held. And one or two of them's going to need a place very soon. And it was like, I don't know what it was like, you know. I thought, is this like April Fool's Day or something? They're coming having me on. So I said, well, a tiger's a different level from a puma. But yeah, I said, if I have a word with the powers that be, like the charity and everything, and what we're doing, and although I still ran the place as a business and the charity was aside, I had to keep everybody involved. Because the charity trustees were there for parrots. You know, like if I said, I've just got 3 tigers. And they said, well, we're not working with tigers, we want to be parrots. So, but they was happy. So I said, but part of it would be that I need to learn a lot about tigers. An awful lot about tigers. So I said, so when would this, if it ever happened, when would it be? He says, probably 2 years, 3 years. And I said, right, so I need to know about tigers or big cats. So in my head, and remember, I didn't tell anybody this. I didn't mention this to anybody.
Surprise.
Because I thought I'm going to look right stupid with egg on my face for 2 months. So we said, I could have a tiger. And they said, no, I didn't see. No, I was just having you on. So I thought, I best not say anybody because I look silly. So one person I did speak to, so there's a chap called, and we've mentioned him briefly in the past, and I'll mention him again, was Steve Nichols, who was the head chap at Flamingo Land. Now, he wasn't into big cats, but he looked after big cats forever. He was into birds. And I phoned him and said, Steve, what? He said, yeah. I says, do you think about tigers? He says, oh, God, Steve, I hate them.
Did he really say that?
And I says, what, you hate tigers? He says, no, I love tigers. He said, but I hate the thought of having to look after them. He says, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, you will never, ever have a peaceful time at all times because you've got a big cat on site. He says, Steve, at the moment, the hardest thing that's going to happen is a parrot's going to fly or a meerkat will nip your toe. He says, what comes with, in the zoo world, with a big cat is an unbelievable amount of red tape and bureaucracy and safety. And I thought, it's a little bit like, you know, when we tell people parrots are noisy and they go, yeah, I know. And then they go back and think, oh my God, they
They're
are.
so noisy.
And they're so annoying. And then they phoned us and said, "No, you said they were noisy,
But we didn't believe you.
but I've got a dust allergy." And it's like, "Oh yeah, all right." Well, I was the same.
Yeah.
No matter what he said, I thought, well, it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
It is. It was. So I thought, well, okay. So I went to see him, and he said, but he did say, anything you need to know, I will let you know. And because I'm a little bit, if I'm going to buy a TV, I look at 300 of the same TV and 300 reviews before I even think about it. I did the same with this. I literally spoke to everybody. I went to see people, and I knew where the tigers were going to come from. I didn't know the exact address, but I knew where they were going to come from. But I also knew somebody that had tigers in Lincolnshire, and I thought, well, he's as good as anybody to go and see because, and it was, believe it or not, it was the reindeer man. Yes. So he also had tigers. So now
At the same complex.
Oh yeah, but it was huge. It's got about, I think it's got about 60 or 70 acres.
Oh my word.
So yes, it was a. Now the tigers, in all honesty, weren't in the most elaborate. So you've got to know. So what you've got to be careful is, as I start mentioning things, there's going to be some. What's the word? There's going to be some. Excuse me, my mind's gone a bit blank. What do they call it? Opinions.
Okay.
There's going to be some instant personal opinions.
Right.
Until I get to the next bit.
Okay.
So what we've got is this chap. He was a tiger keeper. He used to be in circuses many years ago, and so what they used to do is they used to breed a lot of tigers, and they didn't keep the tigers. They used to pass them to other circuses around the world.
Right.
So I went to see this chap, and I thought, I'd seen him with the reindeers. Rod told me that he'd got tigers, so I thought, well, if anybody is going to be able to at least show me a tiger close up, he will be able to. And he is more than that. So I turned up and I thought, I have no idea what this chap's going to be like when I mention tigers with him, because he's going to turn around and say, why are you even thinking of tigers? You were talking reindeers a couple of years ago. But when I mentioned
So when you went to see him for the reindeers,
yes.
Why did you go and see him for the reindeers?
Because he said he might have one or two reindeers that need help, because like what he does, he hates to actually just put them to sleep if there's nothing wrong with them, but they don't fit. So if you on the odd occasion, we're fortunate we don't have a lot, but when you have a lot, some of the youngsters just get totally orphaned, and they won't look after them.
Yeah.
Or the dad, for whatever reason, will
Doesn't
start
like
chasing them around if there's another little bull or something like that. So he'd mentioned this to Rod, that he might have to have one or two reindeers that he needs to find a home for. Rod had mentioned it to me, and as part of it, he said,
Go down and see him.
Well, he said I need to see it because I'll need to go and see where they're going to go.
Right.
And I also want him to come and see to make sure it's not some idiot that's going to be looking after him. So I went to see him, and in all honesty, he was one of the.
Did you end up with reindeer after that?
Yes.
Oh, so you did actually take
That's
some?
where Boomer and
Flower
and everybody came from. Yes.
Oh right. So you took those ones.
They was evicted out of the herd, and he had these brilliant ways of doing things. So like we went with the building, because everything we do we try to do over the top. Just gonna go off tigers and go back onto reindeers, and I thought we need to build something from a good stable or something like that. And I went to see him and I said, right, I need to build a stable. He says, right, he said, don't be silly, you're not going to be having hundreds like I've got.
Yeah.
He says, so build something nice, but not stupid. Like, so if you saw his, they were like Rolls Royce of stable. Honestly, some of these horse trainers would have been really pleased at what he'd done. And so I went in and I was like looking at this huge stable, and there was small groups of reindeers in there. And as we were looking at it, I was saying, like, so why are some separated? And he said, well, basically, when we need to treat them, these are all to be treated for worms or parasites or something. Right. What they don't like is they don't like to be separated. And if we use wide enough mesh, when they're all walking about, they think they're in the same herd.
Right.
They don't realise they're not in the same herd.
Yeah.
And he was really strict on things like diet.
Yeah.
And strict on, well, you'll know, water. They need to have the water changed. It needs to be ice cold. Don't ever give them water that's lukewarm. Yep. Because their systems do not work on heat of any sort whatsoever. And don't try to feed them like zoos do with all these special reindeer foods and things. Pellets and carrots, that's all they need, because all they're used to eating is lichens and things like that, where basically the worst of anything, they have to have a lot of it to get nutrients. So, and he was very strict. So he didn't tell you like he was like educating, he told you like he was telling you off. So he was like, don't forget carrots.
We'll have this and this and this only.
and like you think, all right, okay. So I thought the good thing about him is he's worked with tigers for many, many years. And I mean, this chap at this point was about 72, 73.
Holy moly.
And he'd been with tigers since he was 12.
Oh my gosh, that's
The fact that he was still living means he was good.
that's the sign of a successful person.
But this is what he used to say in all this industry.
Yeah.
And I've been in I've looked and viewed and inspected and liaised with every single industry.
Yeah.
And in that industry, they always turn around and say, you don't get very many bear trainers that retire.
No.
Because the bears get the upper hand of them. But if somebody does retire naturally, they've been good at what they do. And it's like, oh, right, that's novel. Thanks. That's a good advice. So I went to see him about tigers.
Yeah.
And I said, right, okay, you've seen what I'm like with reindeers. Oh, let me just tell you, the other thing he said was, when you were building a reindeer, when you're building the stable, he says, don't ever try to make it like a house. So I said, what do you mean? He said, don't try to make it warm. Don't try to make it, he said, it's got to be windy. I said, what, in the house? What about when they're sleeping? He says, it's got to be cold, fresh air coming through it at all times. So me and the builder were looking and thinking, this is rubbish. Because Pete was saying, like, I wanted to build this. He said, no. He said, do not give them any heat or any stagnant air whatsoever.
Yeah.
They need to have fresh stuff going in the mouth all the time. He said, they're just not built for English weather. So, and then he said, we could hear all these dogs barking. And he used to have guard dogs for the tigers. And they were all Rhodesian Ridgeback.
Right.
Yeah, and their kennels were better than most zoos' enclosures. Because I couldn't believe it when I said, oh, what else is it? I says to Peter, what else have you got? Look at them. And I said, what do you keep in there? He says, dogs. He says, no, in them there. He says, dogs. No. He says, come on, I'll meet you. He says, but don't get too close. When we went to see the tigers, he says, get as close as you want. But the Rhodesian Ridgebacks were looking, and I thought, well, I'm not going near them. Forget that. And again, they were like, if he didn't duck across something like that, but if he did, that's what you do.
Yeah.
They were all perfect in every way. So he says, right, okay, tigers, let's look at tigers. First thing is with tigers, do not ever, no matter who it is, no matter what it is, trust it. Ever. And I thought, I'm nowhere near that. I haven't still looked at them yet. My stomach was all over the place. I haven't seen a tiger yet. And I'm like, thinking, oh, God, what's he on about? So he says, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, if I turn my bike, if I walk away, I'm going to trust that you'll stay there. You do not take one step forward. Right, okay, this is fun. I'm enjoying this already. I understood what he meant.
That sounds horrific.
When he took me around, so all these tigers that was ready for, like, what had happened is he'd bred some tigers for to go to Malta. He'd bred a group of tigers to go to Malta. And literally, I was sat with him in his house as we were talking about tigers and things. And I'm not kidding, I learnt more about... in fact, I think I've learnt 95% of what I know about tigers from him. And people say, oh, he's a very knowledgeable person. He must have forgot more than what I know. You know, his knowledge is phenomenal. And we were sat talking, and it was like being at school. He used to make me... everything in this house, every bit of food was made by him. He used to make all his own cakes and things. Do you want a piece of cake? Yes, I made this morning. Oh, right, okay, all right. Do you want some tea? Yeah, right, I do this. And I'll make it my way, and it's all tea leaves, and this is going to be nice, isn't it? But it was lovely. There were books. There was animal books everywhere. And he'd sit down, so he'd be like going through...
How did this man have the time with all the reindeers and all the tigers and the cruft level dogs and making his own cakes? Where did he get the time from? I can't even get time to do my own washing.
What he did is very clever. He employed people.
Yeah. I can't employ anyone to do my washing, can I?
To feed and clean. He employed people to feed and clean for him, and they lived on site.
Yeah.
So they did, at his age, they did the majority of the work.
Yeah.
So what he did is anything that needed doing... Well, basically, anything to do with medical.
He did the fun stuff.
Well, any medical and danger. That's what he did.
Okay.
So if you've got... if Bob,
and making cakes at his spare time.
Cakes. If Bob was going mental or in the field at the end...
he'd do that,
He'd fetch out and he'd shout him and he'd do the work. So he took me around. So he'd got this group of tigers that he'd bred from Malta. And I remember talking to him, and he knew I was going to get 2 tigers, not from him, from somewhere else. And so he's taking me through everything about tigers. And while we're doing this, he's saying, do you know much about this? And he's showing me paperwork, and I'm looking and I'm helping him where I can. Anyway, whatever happened throughout Europe, it fell through. The paperwork and everything fell through. Excuse me. And I says, what do you do now? I said, you've got all them tigers there. He said, I don't know. I've no idea.
Oh my gosh.
He says, it's never happened. He said, I've been doing this for years and it's never happened. It's just, that's it, done.
Is what it is.
He said, everything's changed. So I said, all right. So didn't think anything about that. Never thought anything about it at all. And he would literally telling me, he'd take me to show me the food, how to feed them, when to feed them, what to do, what to look for. And this was not like a one-off meeting. I think I probably went twice a week, 3 times a week for a year, 18 months, until I was just absolutely besotted with tigers.
Yeah.
And to watch these tigers, how they watched him, and there was this sense of like in awe, you know, like he used to walk and the tigers would be looking at him. And I know now because we see it.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking, or when we had Dera and when we had Uganda and wherever you're talking, and the tiger's like looking at you as well, like, oh my God, that's my dad. My dad's telling her about this. So, well, this is what they were all like, all of them. And there's a little story about Dera that I'll tell you about him. So he said to me, right, when you get them, this is what you do. And he always compared things like lions. He's showing you a pragmatic way of things. He said, like, lions will trust you up to a point. Remember, they're all big killers.
Yes.
But they'll trust you up to a point. The reason they'll trust you is because they're killers. But they live with killers.
Yes.
So they have to have an element of trust.
Yeah.
Because every time they're walking away from the 2 brothers, they could kill them.
So
they do have to trust them. So they trust us humans up to a point. Tigers will never trust you. Tigers will be nice.
Yeah.
But give them the wrong feeling at the wrong time, and they'll always try to get you.
Yeah.
They'll always turn you back on them, and they'll always try. And we've witnessed this so many times. Yeah. And the things that he's said about when he's been talking about them, that when he was saying it, I was thinking, don't fully understand what he's on about there, but I'll take it on board.
Yes.
But as we've been working with the tigers over the last 14, 15 years, you
learn.
Yeah. And it becomes experience, and you start seeing what's going off. So at this point, I thought I knew a lot about tigers.
Yes.
And
so you were on the books to get
yes.
2 tigers.
Yes. So the council said to me, Steve, we think in the very near future, we're going to be stuck with a male and a female tiger, and we're going to need help.
Yeah.
We don't want to put it to sleep. Do you think you could help us? And I said, well, I think I've got the knowledge now. I know we've got the staff because we'd employed a couple of keepers that had looked after cats. Mm-hmm. So I said, yeah, if you need help, let me know. Within a week, Steve, I'm letting you know.
We need help.
We need help. Right, okay, so we've got a male and a female tiger. So I said, okay. This was about, I'm guessing, but I think this was about January. This was about
what year?
March of 2014. Okay. We actually took them in January 2015. Mm-hmm. I think that's right. It works. Yeah, it does. So that's no problem. That's okay. So we'll start building now.
Yeah.
I said, obviously, we're going to have to, because I don't know what these tigers are going to be like. I'll work on the standards that I can see and make sure we're bigger than any minimum standards. But we need to build a provisional enclosure, which is where Zori is now.
Yes.
In order to get them in place, keep them quarantined.
So that we've got the time.
And then we've got the time then to build the proper enclosure.
Yes.
And also get the money, because the big one cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he says, yep, no problem. We will work with you. We will absolutely 100%. You're helping us out. That's brilliant. So we got all the designs put together and sorted it out, and he was really happy. We started building. We was about, and remember, all this time we're building, I increased my tutorials.
Yeah. Until
the point where Martin was fed up with me. Martin was proper fed up with me. Like, oh, is he here again? No, I need to know. There's nothing else you need to know. It's just you need experience now. No, just tell me something else, please. And I never ever walked away without learning something, ever. And he's got 2 sons who are into it the same. And every time you speak to them, their knowledge is very good on them. So I knew we was going to get the pair of tigers, which was, I didn't know the names. I just know there was 2 tigers that lived together. So I said, right, okay. So we started building. We got it all built. We got it to the point where we thought everything was ready. We did it. It's a little place, but it was nice and posh. It was going to be more than big enough for them to settle into.
Had a pool.
Had its own swimming pool, which caused me all sorts of problems because I'd promised the family a swimming pool since the day we moved in, and the tigers got one before anybody else did. And so we built this lovely pool. We got 3 bedrooms. We got a nice little raceway. It was actually quite nice. It looked lovely, and so it'd be a perfect. We called it the animal holding enclosure. A perfect introductory place where we can do anything medical and anything. And so this is one of the very few projects that we was actually ready probably about 3 weeks before. I know.
That's shocking. We're normally ready on the day.
It's that. We've even got the animal helping us. You know, it's
just put that screw in there.
So it's just so we were at this situation where I said, right, okay, we're ready. And so then things happen. And things happened to me personally. So the nerves kicked in. So it's like, I'm going to be looking after 2 tigers.
Very different from what you're already doing.
Very, very different. I don't know anybody. I know anybody. So I speak to Steve and he says, no, Steve, because I moved in and they got tigers. So I've never been the first to have tigers.
Yeah.
Well, but right, your boss, no, it was his dad that started it. So his dad had that, but he'd never had that, Gordon. It was like, there must be someday. So I phoned all the people in zoos and around. No, Steve. They've always had tigers here, so I've come to their tigers. I've never actually been at a place where a tiger's come. Right, I've done it again.
the first of my kind.
What am I doing here? What have I done? So we got to the point of, I think they was due to come in about November 2014. They was due to come. I gets a call October the 21st from Rod. Right, Steve, tigers. Yep, I'm all excited. And I didn't give him a chance. This is done, that's done, this is sorted, I've got this kind of lock, I've got this done, we've got water there, we've got meat, this is what we've done, I've built a fridge. Rod, I've done this. Steve, wait a minute, come back. What? Right, you can't have 2 tigers now. Oh.
No.
Oh, Rod, it's just cost me 50 grand, 60 grand. And no, you're going to have 5 tigers now. What do you mean I'm going to have 5? I can't, but no, there's not a place big enough. I haven't built it for 5 tigers. Well, you're going to have 4 with a 5th one following. I said, whoa, wait a minute. This is getting daft now. What you mean? He says, she's given birth to 3 cubs.
Oh.
Well, the nerves then were like, you are joking.
So, I bet you were elated.
Well, I were petrified.
Well, yeah.
I'll tell you why I was petrified. So when he very first said it, I thought, a tiger, a Bengal tiger with 3 cubs. I've never looked after a tiger in my life.
And now got 3 babies.
And I've got a family cub. Oh my Lord, what do I do here? So that's okay, no problem. We'll sort that out. And then the day after that, very, very close by, I'm reading everything to do with tigers because I want to be this big. I need to know what I'm doing. And the headlines come: London Zoo's baby tigers fell in the pool and drowned.
Oh no!
Oh,
and you just put a pool in the animal holding enclosure.
So the day after, we went and emptied the pool.
Did you?
Turned it into a ball pool.
Oh my God! Did you actually?
Yeah, we filled it with balls and things like that. And I said, I saw Martin. I said, Martin, I took the water out. Why? I said, because theirs fella. He says, don't worry. He says, theirs is different.
Yeah.
Yours won't have that. He says, right, take the balls out and put in 6 inches of water. Stop being stupid. Proper told. Okay, Martin, sorry. Put 6 inches of water. Tigers love water.
Yeah.
They're no good if they've got to climb out. And what London Zoos will have done, they'll have wandered away from the mum and the couple have fallen. Right, okay, no problem. Right, okay, so what do I do then? So he says, what do you mean what do I do? I've got these 3 babies. He said, I'll help you.
Yeah.
I'll come over and bring them over. So I said, right, okay then. So we got everything ready. Everybody's nervous. Got all this fire-armed men, with the guns and like the cavalry. If anything had happened and they'd have all shot, it would have looked like one of these brigades, like one of these king's birthdays or something. Would have shot all planes out at the sky because it was like that with guns. So Martin turns up with the transport and everything. He smiled as he was going down the drive, never stood there with the guns. He says, never had a gun in my life. What? I said, no, just tell them what to do. They just, Right, okay. So this then became a strange feeling, and I'll explain this feeling. This is probably one of the most surreal feelings I've ever had. So much so that my second book that I'm writing starts off with this story. So we're all ready and everything's done, and I've checked everything, I've polished everything, I've made sure there's no dirt in the water, and they've got crystal clear water and brand new straw on the day so that no mice could have gone into it the night before. Everything was painted, all the cameras were done, and my seat was there so I could sit with them all night. I don't know what I have no idea what I thought I was doing. So, and Martin said, right, very similar to what we said to Elliot a couple of weeks ago. Right, Steve, you're in charge. This is your baby. You tell us what to do. Oh,
what do you mean?
I thought you were going to be boss. So he says, right. So he reverses his vehicle up. He says, I like how you've done this. This is perfect. The vehicle will just fit straight to it. Under the bolts, the tigers have got nowhere else to go. So this is in the first entrance. So this is where Zodi comes out now. They didn't used to have that little roof there.
Oh, right.
That used to be just an opening.
Yeah.
So we could pull up with the like big cat carrier, bolt it to it, and just open two doors. And there's only one way they could go there. So, and we knew we could drive into the enclosure, which is why we kept that concrete like that, so we could drive vehicles in. So we goes in, and we've got the lads inside, and they're all waiting, and everybody's inside, really. I mean, the tigers must have thought, what's this?
Oh, it is.
So, and then Martin stood outside of me and said, right, you ready? Yeah, I said, yeah, I think so. He says, and all the time I'm thinking, we have bolted everything, haven't we? We've closed everything. Just 1 second.
Everything's locked in it.
I'll just go and have another look. So I walked around all that's a bit OCD with locks.
Yeah.
Checks all the locks, sorts them all out, comes back and says, right, okay. So I'm stood there, like, looking, focused down, thinking, this is a tiger, Steve. This is a tiger, and your bedroom is 25 foot that way. It can kill you. This is just a tiger. And he opened it up, and this growl this growl came, and it was like an instant laxative. I just went, oh, wow. What was that? And he says, that's just saying she's coming out. And she came out and she looked at me, and as she looked at me, I thought, she don't like me. And then she put her head down, like tigers that we've learnt since, the ignorant swines, puts her head down, walks off, and goes round. That's it. At this point, the biggest tears in my eyes.
Oh, Steve.
And I don't look anywhere, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's my baby, I've got to look after that. And then these 3 babies appeared, that big. Oh. And I was like, what do I do with them? I'm the dad now. What am I supposed to do? What do I do? So the entire country's eyes were on me.
Yeah.
A novice, 3 cubs, and it was like, oh, what do I? So they came through, and they came in, and then Martin got everybody organised, and he said, right, they're in, they're sorted. I think we need to leave you now to have a little bit of time. I thought, oh, right, what for?
Is it that obvious?
Yes.
Is it on my face?
He says, this is the time where you have to do a bit of bonding. So I says, right, okay. He says, we want her to see that the positive side is you, not us. So I says, right, okay. He disappears, goes. Everybody disappears and goes. I sat down, looking and thinking, oh my Lord, this is real. There's me and 4 tigers, 3 cubs and Mum. Mum's looking at me and thinking, this is real. I'm going to kill you at first chance again. I'm going to eat you and feed you to my kids. And she hated me. Absolutely hated me. To the point, so the 2 or 3 things that happened that were poignant. Every single person on site was petrified.
Yeah.
All the way through, everybody was petrified, and it was like, I've never done anything in my life where I thought I've bit off more than I could chew. But on this particular occasion, it was like,
have I?
This is out of my control. This is a tiger. This is not normal. So we didn't have as many lights around the place, and this is February or end of January, so it's pitch black at 3:30, 4.
Yeah.
And when you turn the lights out, it were black.
Right.
It were proper black. And I did also, this is not posh, but then we didn't have electric gates either.
No. I'd
just got gates that you closed.
Yeah.
And I went into my house and I said to Dawn, she says, are you all right? So I said, I think so. She said, I don't think you're all right. I said, I think I am. I said, I'm just going to have a drink, then I'm going to go back to the tigers. Me tigers. them baby tigers that I'm the dad of. Went through all that for about 20 minutes. I said, but in the meantime, I'll go and close the gates. Yeah, that's no problem. You've done it for the last few years. There's no problem, just go and close the gates. I've done it forever, every night. Until this night. And I opened the door, so I opened the door, I thought, we've got tigers on site, and she don't like me. And it's dark. So our drive isn't very long. It's about 100 metres. But 60 metres in, it's pitch black. And I mean pitch black. And I'm genuinely feeling a bit afraid. And I mean to the point where I was like a little bit jittery. I got about 5 paces away from the gate, and a pheasant flew. You have never, ever heard a noise come out of a 16-stone bloke what came out of me. You know, if it had been a tiger, I'd have frightened it to death. I screamed, and I mean proper screamed, and at the end of the scream, I laughed because I knew what I was screaming at. But I felt so embarrassed, and it was so loud. And I closed the gate in the most... That's why I got electric gates. I wasn't doing that again. I should have been better off just playing a halogen light.
Oh, God.
So I went back down, and I must have looked shell-shocked. Dawn said, what's happened? Have they got out? So that's what pheasants have. Told the story. She thought it was highly amusing and disappeared. So I then had the problem of, I've got a wild tiger with 3 cubs.
Yep.
Who doesn't like me.
Yep.
Who actually liked everybody else. So when Laura went to see it, we know the noises now, we all make the noises, but I'd spent 6 months trying to learn how to froth. And all I did was spit on people. And tigers like that. What's he doing?
Why is he spitting on me?
Why is that bloke with that funny affliction? Why does he think I'm going to be his friend? So we learned how to do it after a while.
Yeah.
And so every time I went near the cage, and we videoed this, people see the video, and we've got a little video on YouTube and what have you. Every time I went near the cage, she just attacked me. The noise was phenomenal, to the point where she was protecting her youngsters. She was in a new place, new food, new everything, and there's this big bloke who thinks she's going to be his friend. She was biting the bars, and she weren't allowed out. She had to stay in for her.
To be fair, though, I think we should maybe
wait
until we've got the videos. Maybe next week we can talk about Dara.
That's a cliffhanger.
Can we do it without crying? That's the
I don't
problem.
know if we can, but we've always got the on-off button.
We have.
we can probably talk. We can take you through Dara's life here.
Yeah.
Seeing as though we've started. That might be quite interesting. That might be a good way of closing it and getting it a good close, because we haven't even talked about it yet.
No, we're not. We can't do it.
It's quite difficult to talk about it.
But we've started at the beginning, and I think it would be nice to get the videos up, because obviously we've got all the videos from what you recorded from when she first came and what she was like, and I think it would be actually beneficial.
We increased the water, you know, it weren't 26 inch water, we increased it. And I've got some of the videos that you'll see that Basira was an absolute nightmare.
It still is, to be fair.
He just thought he could jump on
Kill
two sisters.
pigeons and eat them in front of the camera. What can you do?
So,
I think we should talk about that next week. I think we should get some pictures and videos.
Well, it was like that was the start of talking about Dero. I don't think anybody's even talked about Dero. I'll just give you a little secret. Jess has worked with Dero for years, literally years, so she knows her inside out. When she first arrived here, Dero had this unbelievable fascination with blonde-haired women.
Really?
Unbelievable. You know, I'd walk in and I'd be going, right, this is her. She'd be like, and this is Dero, and this is Laura. And I looked at her and thought, you cow.
Tell me you bought a wig.
She like, no, but what I will tell you, which is really interesting, I was spending ages and ages trying to do it. I'm not going to go through the story. I'll go through the story next week. But after everything had finished and everything, and I'd used Martin all the time and said to Martin, and I brought people in and all sorts. But anyway, so Martin came to see me about 4 or 5 months later, and she obviously knew him from what he'd done in the past and everything. And I was talking to him, and as I walked round, she heard his voice and put her head round, and literally she was like a little dog.
Aww.
She come running to, and I looked and thought, God, I hate you. I proper hate you. I love you because of your knowledge, but I hate you because the tiger I fell in love with hates me and likes you. And he went, don't worry about it. She'll either like you or not.
Yeah, that makes it so much better.
Well, I'll tell you the full story about that next week as we go on. But that's actually been quite nice. So that's how we got big cats.
That's quite a segue.
It is, isn't it? That's how we got big cats.
Yeah.
I don't ever regret it.
No.
I think it was the best thing we ever did.
Yeah.
But it was the hardest, the most troublesome thing we've ever done.
I do. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's opened up a lot of doors as well for people to call us for everything under the sun, which is wonderful in terms of being a sanctuary. On the other hand, it is very emotional because we physically cannot help everything, and it's difficult.
It also highlights how big the problem is.
Yeah.
Because we would have never got a call.
No.
And I might be able to next week just relate to what calls we've had this year.
Yeah.
We're in May. What calls we've had this year? Write them down, and you won't believe. And it's like, oh my God.
I wish we could help everything. If we had unlimited money, we would help absolutely every call that we could.
Yeah, so if the other one, when I said about the dream about the tigers, if the lottery one comes through,
we can help every animal under the sun.
We can help all the big cats and everything. That's okay. Right, that's another story.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's actually quite nice. Well done. That was actually quite good. It's we've got that. I feel like we've achieved something there.
I think we've done. Talking about Dara without knowing that we were talking about Dara was quite good.
Yes.
I don't know how we're going to get on next week though.
I'll start getting nervous already.
Yeah, we'll approach it when we approach it.
Thank you very much from Jessica.
From Jess.
And from Steve for another episode of Wild Conversations. Take care. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. See you later.